For counselors in attendance, we have all but Peter May, who lost his beloved Aunt Helen, that a lot of us knew, and those services I think were today. So he's not with us for this meeting. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. We could show the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sherry, do we have anyone signed in for public engagement?
No one tonight.
Is there anyone in attendance who wanted to speak for public engagement? If you could raise your hand. None. Okay. Moving on. It will be glorious when we don't have to have COVID-19 updates, but we will continue with that. So I will send it to Steve. Are you opening, or we send it right to Ruth?
I'm going to let Ruth and Tom take a bow for what they put on, I guess a week ago today. I think we're still sore from standing around, but great job by the team. And at the end, if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, I would like to read a little note that I got from someone today. Handwritten note. I won't divulge the names, but it's really kind of gives the flavor of the people that came in. So
nice.
I'll turn it over to you, Ruth, first, and then to Tom. Ruth, you need to unmute.
You'd think after all this time. Anyway, thank you very much. Yes, it was the social event of the season. Of course, there are no social events this season, but we all got to see people we hadn't seen in a long time, which was really nice. Snowstorm wasn't so nice, but everybody was very gracious, and we doubled up appointments in the morning so to get as many people through before the storm came. We had a fantastic crew of people helping and working the clinic. I'm trying to think, it was probably close to 100 people there working between nurses who were vaccinating and EMTs who were the observers, a number of the police department, and then lay people helping with the administration and the greetings, including greeter number one, Mr. Mayo. And we also had a lot of help from some of the other health departments because it was a regional clinic. So the Medford Health Director was there, and the Stoneham Health Director was there, along with a lot of other people. So it went really well. We did almost 1,500 people. It really was a very positive experience. Very thankful for that site. What a gift to have at just the right time. And just thanks to everybody who came and everybody who helped at the clinic, because it was definitely a team effort.
Great. Maybe Tom, and then we can talk about some next steps.
I just wanted to say it was, again, a great effort by the entire team. Everybody, almost every department in the town was there in some form, some shape. We actually turned that building around in 5 days, you know, from when we actually got a signed agreement and then went in there between IT, the town's plumber, the town's electrician, the work that they did, IT, just to turn that building around. We weren't really up and running to get that thing done until Sunday afternoon, where everything was set in place. So, I mean, just a fantastic job. And like Ruth said, we had between 90 and 100 volunteers. So, I mean, and a lot of people stayed like 12, 13, 14 hours to get that project done on that day. So kudos to everyone, and it was just a great effort by everybody.
Okay, well, we're not done there, and why don't we talk about, well, on the 22nd of this month, those who received their first shots will receive their second shots. The Pfizer is a 3-week waiting period. So all of those people, I think they've already been notified, and I think probably the vast majority have scheduled their appointments. So that should run a little bit smoother. And Ruth said I was the greeter. I think I was the bouncer. More probably a better.
That's being nice.
Yeah, you're being nice. Yeah, was a better explanation. But we certainly have a long way to go, and a lot more people that we certainly want to get vaccinated. So Ruth, why don't you talk about what's happening on the 26th?
Yeah, so on February 26th, we will be doing a clinic for Wakefield residents who are 75 and older. You must live in Wakefield, and you must be at least 75 years old. And it will be at the same place, the Converse building at 200 Quannapowitt Parkway. It will go from 9 to 5. We will have a lot of vaccinators there again, so that we can do a lot of people at the same time. We will have approximately 700 doses of Pfizer vaccine. So we will be able to vaccinate 700 people 75 and older. It's not a website, it's a URL. I believe it's gone live, Steve, on anything?
I don't know. It might be live tonight or tomorrow morning.
Okay. So it will not be on the state website because it's only for Wakefield residents, but the town will have it on the website, on posters, in the newspaper. It will be everywhere, and you will copy and paste that into your browser. However, if you don't have a computer or not very good with the computer, do not call the state 211 site because it's not going to be on the in the public domain, but you can call the senior center, and they have a phone bank of people ready to help you and register you. You will just need your health insurance information when you make the phone call, and then you'll give them your name, address, phone number, answer some questions, give them your health insurance information, and they will schedule the appointment for you. Also, Mystic Valley Elder Services has a taxi voucher program. So if you need transportation, there is a taxi voucher program for a round trip ticket. And if you check with Mystic Valley Elder Services or the Council on Aging, they can give you the information as to how to access that. Let's see. And then of course, there'll be another clinic 21 days after that for second vaccinations. So we are working within our region, and all 6 communities will be doing a 75 and older clinic for their residents the 3rd or 4th week in February. So Melrose, Malden, Medford, Wakefield, Winchester, and Stoneham will be having clinics within those 2 weeks. And it'll all be for 75 and older within their community.
Tom, do you want to add anything to that, Tom? And then I wanted to say a couple of things.
No, I think as long as we got the message out that the people who couldn't do it themselves, that they call the senior center, and those people, they've probably 7 or 8 people that are going to be taking the information. So we should be able to help everyone that needs it.
Right. Excellent. I know that the senior center staff has already been reaching out to people to help them that were, on the waiting list from before. Also, we will be have paper in the kiosks. There'll be information in the kiosk. We'll be doing a reverse 911. It'll be on our website, on our Facebook page. There's a story going out in the item. This is all going to hit tomorrow. So you're getting a preview, people that are watching WCAT tonight and the town council meeting. And boy, do we hope that we have more of these. We certainly do. We're geared up for it. We're ready to go. We have lots of volunteers, and Rick Stinson's done a great job in in managing them. And I think volunteers have had a great experience on this. And it's all, we can only give the vaccines that we have. So this is all based on our being really assured we're going to get the vaccines, because the worst thing that would happen, and it's happened to other communities, unfortunately, where they schedule a clinic, everyone gets ready to go, and guess what? Vaccines don't show up. So we are at the mercy of the supply, and hopefully that is increasing. I don't know if you had any questions or comments, Madam Chair, before I read the letter.
I have it might be a silly question, but is the second shot equivalent to the first shot? So if someone doesn't show up for a second shot, are we looking, does that just go to waste, or unlike a first shot?
We never waste a dose.
Okay.
Ever. But you do need the second shot. It is a two-part thing, and you do need the same vaccine. So if you got Pfizer for your first vaccine, you need Pfizer for the second vaccine. So if you can't make our clinic and you go onto the state website, there is a mass vaccination site in Danvers, which is not very far, at the Doubletree Hotel. Check to see if they're using Moderna or Pfizer, because you need to get the same kind. And if you don't get it exactly 21 days later, that's okay. Just schedule it and get the second dose.
So I think my question, and this shows that I don't have a science mind, are the first dose and second doses the same thing?
Yes,
or is it?
They are.
Oh, okay. So that was my question. So
okay.
That's why it wouldn't go to waste. You're not looking for someone who needs a second dose necessarily if you have extra shots.
It's exactly the same dose.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Jonathan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ruth and Tom, thank you so much for the great work that you've done on this, to Rick Stinson as well, and all the volunteers that we had. The feedback that I heard was that it was an incredibly well organized and well run clinic.
Riley, please.
Sorry? Oh. That's it. Anyways, just first of all, just wanted to say thank you again for really the excellent work. I did have a question, and this came from a resident in town who didn't sign up for the clinic, but I know that there is still some hesitancies from a number of folks, particularly who are older or immunocompromised in some way, around kind of even getting together in a setting where they would get the vaccine. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the steps that we're taking to make sure that people are appropriately socially distanced, that the building is set up so that it doesn't, certainly I hope, become, kind of a place where folks may be at risk of contagion.
Sure. So it is a huge space. Technically 140,000 square feet. We're not using all of it, but it's a huge space. And everything is set up to be at least, if not 6 feet apart, actually more than 6 feet apart. There was a little bit of a backup in the first clinic because of the weather and doubling up the appointments, that people who were waiting in line, some of them were not socially distanced. We did our very best to keep every social distance. There are stickers on the floor every 8 feet to keep people apart. The tables are all over 6 feet apart. The observer chairs are all over 6 feet apart. And when we see people congregating, we remind them to stay 6 feet apart. And again, everybody has a mask on.
And from a ventilation standpoint, we're comfortable that the building's adequately ventilated, and all of that stuff that we've gone through with the school buildings.
Yes, if I may, yes, please. We had the company who's running the system came in and does fresh air makeup. So, and that's been running now. The actual day that we opened and ran the clinic, that's when we first brought the fresh air makeup in, and that's been running ever since. So as far as that goes, the ventilation of the system is fine, and everything else is working at the heat and everything else. So it's a very large building. We're probably using, a third of the space of the first floor, but you know, it's still probably 45,000 square feet that we're utilizing.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that explanation. That's really helpful. And again, great work with the clinic, and glad that we've got the plans laid for the next one.
Thanks, Jonathan. Julie.
Thank you. I also had an inquiry from a resident who I guess is hearing that other towns have wait lists at the end of the day if there's any extra. And I know you just said we don't waste any, and I'm sure that's true. But I mean, this is somebody who's not 75, is probably in the next phase, and has some other comorbidities like cancer. Is there any waiting list, or are we just going strictly with the 75 and over?
So we are attempting to stay at 75 and older because we know there is a very large population for that. This clinic will have a waiting list on the website, so or that you can sign up. So when we reach our max, you can be on a waiting list. We do try to keep within the phases. If we can't, we'll go outside of that, but especially with the 75 and older, we know that there is much more demand than we have supply. So yeah, we will have a waiting list of people who meet that criteria that can come.
Thank you. I just one other question. I noticed that some other more city councils are advocating to the governor to get more doses. I mean, if you obviously, I know you know that we're here to help you. If you need us to advocate, I've no doubt you're doing fine on your own, but I think that could be a role we play as well. That's all. Thank you so much.
There's really, I don't usually defend the state government, but in this case, they're giving out everything they get. So it's not like they're sitting on vaccine, and they are in the very, very difficult situation of having way more demand than they have supply and having to decide who gets what. We're getting more vaccine because we're part of a coalition, because we're doing it on a regional. Otherwise, the other communities are getting 100 doses a week, which I'm not sure how we would use 100 doses a week. So because we're part of a region, we're getting more. They're balancing equity and large cities who have been hit hard, as well as who has the facilities to actually get it out there, which clearly we do. So, I mean, I am talking with the state health department on calls 3 days a week, sometimes more, and they are getting it out as soon as they have access to it.
Great, thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Julie. Ed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too have been hearing from a number of people, and all I can say is that I don't think that this site could have been better organized or better run. And I think it's a true testament, I know, to Mr. Mayo's leadership, along with Director Clay's, Mr. Walsh's, and the tremendous Mr. Stinson, and all the volunteers who have been involved. And it's just, it's so easy to lose perspective on this. You watch the news and you see that Fenway Park is distributing 500 vaccines, and that's like the top story in a 6 o'clock news. This site did about 3 times that. And so the fact that you were able to execute the way you were, it's just, and the feedback has just been so incredibly positive. So I would just say, just carry on, because whatever you're doing it very well. And you're directly impacting a lot of folks in town here in a real meaningful way. You know, people have almost acted like they've won the lottery when they've been able to get their vaccine. And so thank you, because I know it's been a lot of hours. This just doesn't happen by accident. So we have tremendous talent on this team, and I thank all of you for it.
Thanks, Ed. Any other members of the council? Steve, are you all set?
Just a quick note.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Your note. Yep.
Actually, was sent to my home, a handwritten note, which was lovely. We'd like to thank you for expediting our COVID vaccine. They were over 75. I don't know why they said we expedited it, but we did. The entire process at the site was truly amazing. Everyone was very professional, well thought out, and organized. The staff was very kind, knowing everyone there was extremely anxious. Personally, since my lung cancer surgery, I have been terrified and have essentially isolated myself. These vaccines will help me to start living again. thank you. We are so grateful. What a nice note to get from somebody, a citizen of our town. So that was really the atmosphere that we got. And we look forward to doing more. So thank you. Great team. I think really a great team. And thank you for the support of the council on this.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Ruth and Tom. Just outstanding, outstanding. I'm so proud of you all. Moving on, we have approval of the minutes. I need a vote and a second for the approval of the January 25th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Paul.
Second.
Seconded by Julie. Roll call vote. Myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Aye.
And Paul?
Yes.
Thank you. And I need an approval and a second for the executive meeting minutes for the same date, January 25th.
So moved.
Moved by Paul, seconded by
Second.
Julie. Roll call vote. Myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Aye.
And Paul?
Aye.
Thank you. Steve, do you want to take budgets since we have some folks here? Take 8 first before 7?
It's up to you, Madam Chair. We could, I don't see, Chief Scory was here. Is he still here?
Here, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see folks here. Yeah.
Sure. Why don't we?
There he is lurking in the
Okay
background.
with you, Madam Chair, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll take the budget since we have folks here. So we're moving to item 8, which is our second round of fiscal year 2022 budgets. The first budget being budget number 1, Town Council.
Oh, why don't you jump to the police first so they can get off?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Chief Scory, you're up.
I think Kevin will give a little preview and then we'll take it from there.
Got it.
Okay. Steve, quick question. Is there the finance subcommittee? Will they talk first or should I?
I don't see, is there a member of the finance subcommittee on this here?
No.
Brian Cusack was on here for a little bit.
Yes, but he is on.
But he's not. Yeah, okay. He's a different subcommittee. Yeah. There's nobody from town council, Steve.
Nobody from the FinCom?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I will give a quick overview of the police and I'll turn it over to Chief Scory. The budget for fiscal 22 we're recommending an increase of $249,703. This increase breaks down. There's an increase in personal services of $240,953, which is contractual and negotiated increases. There's a increase in the contractual services portion of the budget of $11,750. We moved some money around there. We decreased the hired equipment line item $2,000. We decreased the telephone line item $5,000. Those two are based on prior year usage. We also decreased the unclassified line item by $50,000. We moved that up and we made a new line item called professional services. That line item is used to pay for the recovery coach and the mental health clinician. We also added to that line item $37,500 to make the mental health clinician position a full-time coverage position. And we're going to be using a portion of our CARES fund reimbursement for next year to cover half the cost of the increase for the mental health clinician. I put a line item down the bottom of the under the contractual services, the reimbursement of $18,750. And then under materials and supplies, we had 2 small increases totaling $3,000, and both those were decreased based on prior and current year usage. The total budget request for fiscal 2022 is $6,312,358.
Thank you, Kevin. Chief Scory, do you want to, after the year you've had, I'm just ready to vote right now, and we're good. We are good with the police, but why don't we hear from you?
So just to give you a breakdown of that professional services line item, last year we had included the recovery coach and the mental health clinician in the unclassified line item. And I remember Jonathan had asked at that time, why don't we create a professional services line item? So that's what we did this year. So last year, to give you an idea of what the recovery coach and the clinician cost us for fiscal year 21, the cost of the recovery coach was $30,000, and that's billed to us by Elliott Community Health Services, and that includes fringe costs. The cost for the clinician full-time was $85,000, but the cost to us last year was only $20,000. The reason being, they gave us a one-time reduced cost of $25,000, and we also receive a yearly $40,000 grant from Elliott for having a clinician. So this year, with the recovery coach for fiscal year 22, the cost is the same, $30,000. But for the clinician, there's an increased cost this year from Elliott. The total cost for the clinician is $97,500. And that includes the fringe costs and a raise that Jennifer is long overdue. So when you add those two together, you've got $127,500, but we get the $40,000 grant from Elliott, which brings it down to $87,500. Now, like Kevin said, we were able to trim a few other line items by $10,000 to help offset some of that cost. And Mr. Mayo found a way to get some reimbursement money from CARES to help offset that cost.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Do you want to say anything else about just generally the budget or your men and women?
I could go on for days about the men and women. We've had a tough stretch here for a little bit. Last month has been pretty rough, but I think it's our success handling those calls is a testament to the strength of the men and women here and their resilience. Very tough week a few weeks ago. Good number of our officers went through some critical incident stress management. They went through a couple of debriefing sessions. They came out of it well. They've returned to their regular duties. Very proud of them. That's all I can really say is to go through something like what they went through and to handle it the way they did. I'm just very proud as their boss to be able to stand next to them.
Thanks so much, Steve. And, you know, as someone who's worked with scores of police department, I'm just always astounded at how well our men and women respond to these kinds of crises, and crises we don't even know about. Some of us may know about, but the general population does not know what they respond to every week. And I think it's a testament to our commitment to training, to education, to making sure we have a professional force, that they have behaved the way they do. So I just could not be more proud of them. Any questions for Kevin Gill or Chief Scory on this budget? Jonathan.
Thank you. Just a quick question, Kevin. Sorry, what was the total increase that you mentioned? 240, sorry.
249,703.
Okay, and that's the, I have in our packet an increase of 268. So the net of that is the CARES Act funding that we expect to apply?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Just wanted to clarify because I was having trouble tracking the numbers. Otherwise, I'm all set. I really am, pleased with the budget, and particularly glad, Chief, to see the funding for the mental health position. I think that's an incredibly important step forward, and really pleased that I hope the council will vote to support that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any other questions for Chief Scory or Mr. Gill? Seeing none, I will take a motion and a second to approve the budget. And Kevin, was it 6,312,358?
That's correct.
Excellent. Okay, if I could have a second motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Ed. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. All in favor, myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
Excellent. So thank you, Chief Scory, so much for everything. And please thank your men and women for all they do.
Thank you. And I just want the council and Mr. Mayo to know how much everybody here appreciates their support over the last couple of weeks. Like I said, very difficult times, but knowing that they had the support of the council and the town administrator meant a lot to everybody. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Why don't we take the library department next, as I see some folks here. Budget number 34, Kevin?
Yes. Library budget, we are requesting an increase over last year of $20,999. We have an increase in the salary portion of the budget of $18,839. This includes prior year contractual and negotiated increases. I do want to point out that the FY22 contract for the librarians is not included in this budget. There's a small increase under the contractual services portion of the budget, $2,160. This is an increase in the automated network services line item for Noble. The materials and supplies are level funded. The total budget request for fiscal 22 is $1,751,632, with $1,702,493 coming from tax levy, and $49,139 is coming from available funds, which are the library trust funds.
Thank you, Kevin. Oh yes, Catherine, there you are. Do you want to say some things about the library and give us some updates or talk about the budget?
I could answer any questions about the budget that you have. I think that Kevin covered most of it. If you can see on that first page that Sundays were not restored, and we had talked about looking at that in November. And I thought that that was a good idea, both economically and operationally. I think it's a little soon. In July, it will be a little soon to go 7 days. So, and we didn't have it last year, so the numbers are comparable. Did you have any questions on the budget itself? Because I think most people have questions about why we're closed.
I have no questions on the budget. I do have questions about plans maybe to open. And I guess I'll start and others can jump in. I know that, and I would imagine, I assume trustees have talked about this, and I assume you all have talked about this, and not going to 7 days a week, but you know, for someone who's been slugging into Boston since August, teaching in person, and dealing with my own library, which is at a private university, utterly different than a public university. But I do, you know, I wonder whether small steps, there could be some openings,
right?
Whether it's 1 or 2 days. And I know that the new standards are now saying materials can be set aside for 24 hours. It's been 3 days for a little bit, and now it's 24 hours. So I just wonder if there's a way, and I give you so much credit because you got into curbside service so early. That seems to be successful. But, you know, we have a lot of town employees who are going in to other jobs. And I just, you know, thinking outside the box, is there some way perhaps we can have some soft opening or something like that?
Right. Okay. So this is on every agenda at the trustees meeting. I report to the trustees every month on where we stand on this. And the short answer is that we serve many more people with the building closed to the public than we could with the building open, simply because of the space requirements. So, and I do try to send this out as many ways as we can. We've done filming in the library. We've sent newsletters. With the space that's required and how many people can be in that space, that includes the staff. And there is not enough staff space. The office can probably only fit 2 people to work in an office. So the ability to actually process the books and circulate them takes the entire main floor of the library when you put 6 feet apart. So we can still let people in, but the numbers that we can let in at any given time are so small that what you sacrifice are the number of books that people can get if you give them side door service. And it's not, and the numbers aren't anywhere close. Right now, everybody who reserves a book is getting it in 24 hours, unless it's, you know, it's not available,
Sure.
but for the most part. You're getting it in 24 hours. If we were letting people in, that handful of people who came in would get books, and it would be wonderful for them. But all of these other people would not have the option to get those. And it would really be complicated to do it some days one way and some days another because of the way we've set up the floor. So the few libraries that are open are much, much larger than ours. Reading is open. Woburn has been open. But libraries that are like ours, and the closest is probably Melrose. Melrose is in the exact same position we are. And the one thing that I haven't said to people, and I don't know why I didn't say this from the very beginning, the people who want to open the building are the librarians, because this is labor intensive and it's mind-numbing work. And there's no variety because everybody's has to be in their own little place using their own materials. We typically are at desks right next to one another, sharing everything. And so all of that has changed. So if there's anybody who wants to open that door, it's a librarian. And the circulation staff, who are very social people, are now, off by themselves in masks, and it's been a year and they've had it. They really just want to see people. It's a very social place. So it's really hard for the staff too. We didn't make this decision because it's an advantage to us. Sure. It really is serving the most people. So where do we go from here? We're hearing that there's vaccinations. So we're going to look for that sweet spot. How many people will be vaccinated? At what point will it be safe? If the people who are the higher risk are vaccinated first, that's even better. If librarians end up on the teacher list, which is there's some, I don't know what's going to happen about that, but if librarians are vaccinated sooner, as soon as the librarians are vaccinated, we're open, because everybody who comes in can make a decision about whether or not they want to come in, and it would probably be relatively safe. Ruth Clay told me very early on that she was not concerned about contagion and the quarantine, that was not something she was concerned about. But that wasn't what the science said, so we weren't really sure. But now we are less concerned with that, with the handling. Library books have always been dirty. In fact, the 1922 town report notes that 34 books were burned due to contagion in 1922. So this is not a new problem for us. So we will get there. I have lots of phone calls with people. There's at least one person who called the town administrator's office very upset. And by the time I finished my conversation with her, she was relieved and kind of looking forward to what was next, and maybe has come to a few Zoom meetings. We are actually seeing more people at Zoom than sometimes will fit in a lecture hall. So very active, and a lot of communication with people. I did hear very good things about the vaccination event that was held, because people commented on that. And I guess that's about it, unless you have other specific questions.
No, I appreciate, I think, getting it out there that, it's not just the serving more people, because sometimes the perception of an open building is also important too, to see, there's different banks in town that are open and not open. And I think it's good to see these businesses open, but I can appreciate what you're saying about how you've changed just the layout of the library to handle the bulk of the books that are going out, and that it would be difficult to bring people in. And if, keeping an eye on those vaccinations and the numbers and looking to what other communities do, which it sounds like you're doing, I think is really important, because obviously it's such a a center of congregation in our town. So when you are ready to start, even doing it slowly, I think makes a lot of sense. But thank you, Catherine, for that information.
We are definitely ready. The other thing I'll add is that we have installed some self-check, at least one self-check station, and that's going to help us open earlier too, because that's, you know, you don't have to touch anything.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Chair, you may want to have Dan Sherman's on. He is the liaison.
Oh, excellent.
To the library. Just didn't want to forget about him.
Yeah, Dan, you want to jump in?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everybody. So the Finance Committee subcommittee on the library met last week with Catherine, Cindy Schatz, who's on this call, and Adam Rogers and Kevin Scanlon to go over the budget. Kevin covered the most important stuff. The only thing I might want to add, a couple of things. One is the materials and supplies budget is at the 13% threshold, so we will have no issues with the state and its recertification. So we're good there. The second point I would make out is that the budget for 21 is such that there's going to be a significant amount of money coming back to the town, roughly $30,000 to $40,000 on personal services, because we didn't have to hire lots of pages, for example. And if somebody went on vacation or was sick, we didn't have to bring somebody in to cover. So there's some savings there, and there's also some other savings in utilities. And Catherine gave me a note of, you know, roughly anywhere $60,000 to $70,000 coming back for 21 on those savings. The other thing of note is that there is a significant amount of state aid that comes in, and Catherine's position is the same as certainly mine. Is any state aid like that comes in, it's unexpected. We don't use it for recurring services. We use that for special things. And one of those special things may be in November when we do take a look at opening up for Sunday's hours. Speaking as just one member of the 3-member subcommittee, I'm very comfortable with the budget. I think we're good to go. We have negotiations with the library staff. It'll be, I think Catherine indicated perhaps in March that Steve will be leading. So this isn't the final number. It's not going to be a 1.2 when all's said and done. But I think based on what we have right now, I'm certainly comfortable and would recommend to the full finance committee to approve this budget as presented. So
great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Ed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director McDonald, too. That was very helpful information. I guess part of it for me is when I'm looking at the library versus some other town buildings, the library is really unique in that there is an experience to it, and I need not tell you that. People like to go to the library. I mean, you smell the books, you see what's on display. It has a whole feel to it that's lost. So I think the longer that the library is closed, the more experiences are lost for any number of people, including our youngest residents. And in thinking about it, and Steve, I don't know if Ruth is still on, but we're at 40% capacity, I believe now, right? That's in public buildings.
Yes.
Yeah, so the state has mandated or allowed for 40% capacity. So thinking it through, if we were to only have the librarians say vaccinated, and if that was going to be the threshold, I think we actually create an issue there, because while librarians may be comfortable, I think a lot of the general public at that point still would not have been vaccinated. And so if the library opens at that point, then it would seem, and if you're saying there's not the ability to have a hybrid model here, then it would seem that you're actually then discontinuing a service, the pickup service that seems to be very popular. So, and then thinking this through, even as more people get vaccinated, even after the library opens, I do imagine there's going to be a period of time where you're still going to have a general level of discomfort by certain people who may still want to rely upon the idea of being able to come by in a curbside or door pickup. So I almost don't see a way around creating some sort of a sustainable hybrid model, because you're going, you have different issues that are going to come up. But I think the clear issue to me at this point is people want to get into this building, want to make use of it. Other people want to be able to have the curbside option. And I do think that there is a balancing of those two that is going to come, that we currently face, and that will continue on, after the librarians are vaccinated, after you feel comfortable reopening. And I can't imagine at that point, once you reopen, you would just stop all the other availability of books for those who may not feel as comfortable roaming the aisles. So it almost feels like there has to be some kind of a balance here, because the equilibrium definitely gets shifted in a rather weird way. And so I don't know to what extent. And again, I'm not trying to pretend I know what the operations are here, but I can say from a public perception standpoint, to Sarah Santos's comment, a lot of other places, when I think about people are asking, well, if town hall is open, how come the library is not? And I know town hall had to certainly make it, adapt to make that work. And with 40% capacity, available, I am a bit concerned that there's not going to be some point at which, okay, you can just flip from your current model to an all open model. So if there's inherently going to need to be a hybrid, cannot not be implemented now to try to address the needs of opening the building again.
Right. I don't think that we're ever going to see curbside go away. I think that may be a service that's here to stay, because people have experienced it and they like it and it's convenient. How that rolls out, I'm not sure. And I'm not sure if you thought I said we would definitely open if all the librarians were vaccinated, because I think what we're going to have to look at is when we're at a tipping point that it's relatively safe and we can serve more people inside without hurting the pits. We need to get a balance. And I'm not sure what that balance will be or when it will happen, which is why it's on the agenda every month for us to talk about it, because the information changes so quickly. I have said, and I know Jeff Clapes is on here, so he probably doesn't want to hear it again, but I have said repeatedly recently, we need to get ready, and I don't know what it's for. Like, I don't know what we're going to have to do tomorrow, but we could have to do it tomorrow. So we're going to need to be ready to shift the way we already are. I mean, it requires moving equipment and all kinds of things. So we want to kind of be prepared. But we also are not going to want to wait. As soon as we can get back into, some of the people I've talked to, it's not about the books. They want to come in and sit there. They like you said, it's an experience. They want to be there. They want to browse. And they want to wander the way they want to wander. The other thing we have to consider is that we're talking about every demographic in town. The school department, talks about children, and the senior center talks about seniors. We need to accommodate every age group, every level of understanding, we're there for everyone. So all of those are factoring in to the decision of how we make it work. And we want to make it work, absolutely. So what you're saying is true. We're looking for balance, and there will be a balance. I don't think we're going to have to, it's not one or the other. I think we'll be doing both.
I guess that's why when I'm thinking about this, since I'll call it a hybrid, because that's basically what it is. If we are going to have open, but also I'll call it curbside. I do think that the idea of having that kind of plan in place, with the understanding that early on it will probably still be weighted more heavily towards curbside, and over time the hope is that you turn swing in the other direction towards more of like opening. So maybe it's more more limited hours, but more curbside, and then ultimately curbside is perhaps somewhat de-emphasized because you have more people entering the building as it becomes safer. I just feel like we're probably at the point now where being able to have that kind of hybrid modeling in place, because we know that it's inevitable, and as you say, we're going to have some kind of a hybrid arrangement long term. It just feels like that now might be the time. I don't know, Steve, whether this is something that Tom Walsh, with his background too, might be able to offer, a little bit more guidance on operationally. I'm not pretending to know the answers, but I do feel like right now having some kind of a hybrid would make sense.
Yeah, Tom has helped me before.
Yeah.
And Ruth is very helpful too. So, sure. And the state has guidelines. So we have been, Tom's been in the building. So he's helpful when I ask him questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. I saw Maureen and Paul had their hands up before Jonathan. Maureen.
Paul, do you want to go first? Paul, sorry.
Unmute, Paul.
I'll defer to Maureen first, and then I can go. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. So thank you so much, Catherine. And I want to just two comments. One, I feel like, we all follow you on social media, follow the library. And so we know all the services and the numbers are up, and I've used my book club is meeting, and I've done the curbside checkout. Are there any services? It looks like nothing has really been lost. And so you're providing all the same services. Is that correct? So when I see someone say, I need a notary, can they call the library and still get that if they need? I see Cindy and Jeff, everyone nodding. I just want to talk about that the services are there, and that's really important. And the fact that, I see little kids picking up their craft projects every so often when I have my office hours there. So I love that the services are still being provided. But to what Councillor Dombrowski said and Chair Santos also, like, it is an experience. I spent hours at the library on the weekends, usually run into all of you there. And so I do think there's an opportunity as we get closer to summer, because I think we also just need to know there's like an end in sight and kind of like what the plan is, using outdoor spaces. I know other libraries kind of had, computers and laptops outside and kind of, I fondly remember the jazz nights that used to happen, and those probably won't come back this year, but we have that space in front of the library, and to be creative about thinking about, setting up some hotspots outside and people can go in there. And I know your population is so different because there are people that sit there for hours, and, you don't want to all of a sudden have bouncers, although it sounds like Mr. Mayo is a great bouncer in the future of, telling people their time's up and carting people and letting them go. But I think as much as the trustees and you and your staff can kind of just give people, a change and something in the future, I think it would be appreciated by everyone. But thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Paul.
Thank you, Ann. Just one quick question on that I have on all this. What I've heard so far is that side door services is doing very well right now. And the library is reaching a large capacity of citizens who are seeking to use the library. Is that correct, Catherine?
For people who want to borrow materials, yes.
Okay, right. For people who want to borrow materials, that's getting
or printing, anything that can be done at the side door, yes.
Excellent. So hypothetically, if the library should open in a limited capacity, let's just say, would that mean that the library would have to do extensive cleanings on a more regular basis because you have now people coming into the library? Or would you have to restrict them from certain areas because you don't want to be cleaning the entire library after every time you open, correct?
Well, it would probably be a combination of both. The state has cleaning guidelines and they're very stringent. And so the guidelines right now say that if you're browsing a book and you take it off the shelf, you have to put it in quarantine. That book comes off the shelf. So that means somebody can't have it for 24 hours, which is
even for the doors, even for the side door service that applies?
No, because inside door, nobody's touching it. See, inside, it's when people come in and browse. If you browse, you pick something up and look at it, yes. Or you read inside. As soon as you start touching things, it's supposed to go into quarantine. I suspect that that's going to change because they're finding, they say it's what you're breathing more than what you're touching. And if you touch something, if you don't touch your face, you're going to be okay. The virus lives for like 6 days on books. It's, you know, it's a tough bug. It's a tough germ.
So the question has come up. It's not as far as, you know, we want the library open right away. It's when would they plan on opening and under what conditions? So I did do my own. I didn't know Reading was open. Every time I looked at the Reading site, it says that they're closed. Only Woburn says that they're open.
Yeah. Woburn is open because I think there's nobody in it. I think there's no staff. It's all self-serve.
Oh, okay.
So that's how they opened, that everything was self-serve. And I think Wakefield wouldn't like that. The people who come into the building in Wakefield, they know everybody and
they socialize.
They socialize. So it really is like a living room. It's a little bit like a cocktail party.
I think that what you're doing and what the trustees are doing right now with the side door service is probably the best way to go at this point in time until things get a little bit better and more people get vaccinated. And then you can rehash this and come back and say, okay, maybe it's time for us to open it up to a limited capacity. But
right.
I don't think we're at that point personally at this time. But
I don't.
That's my opinion.
I'm hopeful that it's not going to be that long because whenever Dr. Fauci is on, I watch him. And he was on Washington Post last week, and he said there's going to be a big difference in March and April, that he thinks we're going to see lots of doses released. And once that stuff starts getting out there and people start getting vaccinated, it could happen very quickly. So I don't think it's as long as it looked before.
That's good. No.
Yeah. So which is why the staff, when we talk about it, we are trying to be ready for whatever happens. I think the bottom line is we know people want to get in. I'm very happy to know that that's what the library means to them. I know that they call and talk to the reference staff. They email us. Everybody's still connected. And people are getting books and they're getting what they need. We have hotspots and we've worked with the senior center on computers. So people are getting what they need, but there are a whole bunch of people who want to get in the building and we want them in the building. I was wandering through there the other day and it's dead silent. And you know, it's a library. Maybe it's supposed to be quiet, but it's never quiet. It's sad. We're very anxious to get back. So we'll do it as soon as it's, you know, as it's possible to do it.
Thank you. And thank you, staff, Catherine.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Jonathan, then Julie.
Sure. Actually, Councillor Butt asked most of the question that I have, but I did wonder, Catherine, if you could just speak for just a moment about sort of the internet access piece, because I you know, from what I've observed and from what, you know, I've used the library for, I think, you know, the staff has done a really tremendous job of making sort of everything that the library does available to the general public except the physical space. But one of the things I know that a lot of people use the physical space for is internet access if they don't have access in their homes. And so could you talk a little bit more about what you're doing in terms of hotspots and Chromebooks and some of the work you're doing with the senior center?
Well, when you were comfortable outside, when it wasn't snowing, there's Wi-Fi is 24/7. It's always around the building. Not so much on Avon Street, but more on Main Street. There's always access to that. And we loan Chromebooks and we loan hotspots. So if you don't have internet access at home, you can get this hotspot. They're all relatively easy to use. There has not been high demand for them. So we did ask early on. We contacted the school department and we were in touch with the police department. And through the police department, the clinician there has relationships with people who may need computer access. So she will refer them to us. And we use the senior center, mostly because the senior center has a little bit more control over their environment than we would have. And as it's turned out, there has not been anybody who's needed to use that. I don't know if they're taking out the hotspot instead, because that's an option. We were always aware that Wakefield is pretty tech savvy. They're early adopters, and the older generation are all plugged in. There are people who are not, and those people maybe don't even have a cell phone. So you get like both sides of it. So those people are not looking for computer access because that's not a part of their life.
Just the other thought that I would say is I don't know if there's an opportunity maybe to connect with the Housing Authority as well, just as another potential constituency.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
But again, I really do want to echo the comments that everyone else has made. You know, I think the library's done an amazing job of continuing to offer services. I agree with Councillor Donaco. As much as I think we'd all love to be back in the building, it does feel a little premature to me at this point. You know, but certainly hopefully if the numbers kind of trend in the right direction and the vaccines, you know, get into the arms of the folks that need them, you know, we could be having a very different conversation in a few months' time.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jonathan. Julie.
Thank you. I'm not going to repeat everything. It's just so nice to know it's coming. It makes me really happy. And I love the Library of Things. I mean, you've really taken the time to work on some great things. And you may have alluded to this with, you said a lot of the preparation that Tom Walsh has been helping out, but I assume that the whole building's been evaluated for circulation and we've taken the time to think about things like that. Is there anything else that needs to be done physically to the building to open it?
No, we're in pretty good shape. We're really hurt by the fact that the footprint is small. There's just not, you know, individual rooms are small. You can max at 8 people. So it's just not that big, but it's in great condition and the HVAC system's in good shape.
Great. Thanks. Look forward to being open. Until then, yeah. I love the side door.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments from counselors, I'd love to have a motion and a second to approve the library budget for $1,751,632.
So moved.
Moved by Paul.
Second.
Seconded by Jonathan. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Aye.
Paul?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you so much. I see a bunch of trustees on there. Thank you all for your work too, and employees, and for giving some service. But yeah, we're all excited to open those doors again and put our hands on some books. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving to Steve, why don't we go to information technology, as I see, I think Todd here.
Yeah, Todd, and actually Todd was working on a problem at the police station that I pulled him off to come on for this.
Oh, okay.
Not one, or else we would have kept him there. So,
Kevin,
we have the Brian Cusack from the FinCom. So why don't we start out with Kevin and then go to Brian. That's okay.
Very good.
Sounds good.
Very good. The IT budget, we are requesting a decrease next year of $2,881 over the current year. This decrease breaks down. There is an increase under personal services, which is contractual and negotiated increases. Under contracted services, we have a decrease of $6,365. The two main reasons for this, we discontinued a software program due to low usage. And under the professional services line item, which was used for outside report writing, we discontinued that and we are doing that in-house now. Materials and supplies are level funded, and the sundry services charges have decreased $1,862. That was for a subscription service that we decreased. The total tax levy requests for fiscal 2022 is $371,671.
Thanks, Kevin. Brian, lovely to see you. Do you want to chime in on this?
I do indeed. So a couple of things I'd just like to say. Number one, I think Todd and you know, Mr. Mayo and Kevin have just done a great job in really keeping this budget in terrific shape. providing what we need to provide, but at the same time, making sure that we're not seeing some of the rises that we've seen in previous years. So doing a great job there. One thing that we talked about in our call was the insurance policy that the town has around IT security. And, just want to say that that is such a great idea. And one of the things that we hope to look into is to make sure that the terms of that insurance policy are met. And we also talked about the idea of more, so from a budget perspective, I think everything is terrific. We talked about the idea of making sure that we do an education program to make sure that everybody, who's using these services knows not to click on that link that showed up from, who knows where. And I told the story that, I do this for a living, and I have to go through the training every year, and I learn new stuff every time. And, and they do phishing attempts that are by our company to try and get us to click on links we ought not click on. And I clicked on one 2 weeks ago. So, it can happen to anybody. And being constantly aware of that, I think, is such an important thing. But Todd, great job.
Thank you, Brian. Steve, does Todd want to say anything about the department?
He may. He's here for questions as well.
Todd, you are welcome to say anything. And if we have questions, folks can throw them at you.
Sure. Nothing really to report other than what Brian already covered. Pretty level budget here, but I am open to questions if anyone has them.
Great. I think during times of Zoom, to have a level budget is pretty impressive based on what you must be doing across town. Jonathan, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions and a comment. First question I wanted to ask is, I'd imagine the need for technical support over the last year among kind of town employees and users has gone up pretty dramatically, as obviously the school department is doing a lot remotely. A lot of people are working from home. I guess the question that I would ask is, in light of that, do we feel that we've invested enough in sort of the help desk function and some of the other kind of infrastructure needs that we have, just to make sure that people are able to kind of continue to work effectively remotely, or wherever we find ourselves during the pandemic?
We invested quite a bit in laptops through grants to get people the accessibility to work remotely, and to do so with a secure system that we're providing. Prior to that, we had already been working on providing remote support. So even just from our own desk, providing remote support to everyone in the town, just to cut down on the amount of trips you have to run out the different buildings. So that was, it was good timing.
Great. Second question, this is more just kind of an accounting question. One of the things I noticed that we were doing is moving some licenses from kind of an annual license into a perpetual license. Maybe just a question for Kevin, does that then show up, does that cost show up in our capital plan, or how does that work from a cost standpoint?
Yeah, Kevin, those are the Adobe subscriptions. So those would show up in capital when it's time to renew them. But we found that we can hang on to versions a lot longer than usual.
Yep.
So we get, some people just stick to a 5-year refresh cycle, but if it's still supported, we'll go a little longer.
Great. Great. No, that makes total sense. And I think that's a good decision. Just the last comment that I want to make, first of all, I think the budget is in great shape, and really recognize, I think, kind of the creativity and the forethought that's gone into, coming up with a budget that is level funded in the times that we see. The one comment that I did want to make is actually probably less for IT, but thinking about one of the software programs that we're retiring, the C-Click Fix program. And I don't sort of quibble with the notion of kind of discontinuing a software program that folks aren't using. But one of the things that I do want to make sure that we do is, even if we don't have that program in place, that we do have plans within the DPW to make sure that we're accommodating that functionality internally. so that, you know, we are tracking and we are reporting on resident complaints and the types of things that we're seeing. Again, no quibble with changing the software program. There's no sense in spending money on something that people aren't using, but I think the intent behind why we bought that is still good, and would certainly ask Mr. Mayo and Mr. Conway, you know, when we get to the DPW budget, that's something that we spend some time on. But thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming tonight, Todd.
Thanks, Jonathan. I see Julie and then Paul.
Thank you. And this may be more of a question for Steve than for Todd. As we hopefully move back into in person, I know we talked about before this whole pandemic, recording many more of our meetings. And I think now, frankly, it's an expectation. I don't see how we go back. And have we accounted for that in this budget or in future budgets?
You mean the meeting rooms, having the meeting rooms? That would
exactly.
be capital. That would be capital.
Oh, that's capital, of course. Okay. So that's something that we'll talk about when we come to capital.
But I do agree with you. There is an expectation. Maybe
there definitely is an expectation.
Stay Zoom forever.
Yeah, and I think probably an expectation beyond just the few committees we were talking to about a year ago. I mean, I think it's probably across the board, which brings me, I mean, Chair Santo, at some point we may have to revisit the remote participation language.
Yeah. I think you're right, but I think that has to be on the table because people's expectations are that they are going to be recorded and they should be recorded, frankly.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question, Julie. Paul. Unmute, Paul.
Thank you very much, Ann.
You're welcome.
Just a quick question. Todd, you handle all of the Wi-Fi in the town, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so in today's age where everyone's trying to get onto the Wi-Fi as easily as possible, has the town looked into ever trying to expand its Wi-Fi capability in the downtown area in order to give a more accessible access to Wi-Fi? We're already generating a circuit. Is there any way of us looking into putting transponders within the downtown to extend the Wi-Fi signal for the general public?
We could look into it. I would say it's probably nothing that would happen soon. I don't know if it becomes more of a political issue too, if you focus just on one area of town.
Is there a way of opening it up where it would serve access to the town hall as well as giving individuals access to free Wi-Fi in the downtown? Could you provide both?
Almost the same thing, just extending Wi-Fi to downtown, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's nothing that we plan on looking into anytime soon.
And the reason why?
We just have other projects that are more pressing and more pertinent to the IT operations for the town.
So what are your current projects that you're projecting right now that are on the top of your shelf?
We have internal security controls that we're going through. We have data center upgrades to do. We have school projector refreshes to map out over the next few years.
Okay, no, I just didn't know what the forecast was on this. I mean, I don't get the opportunity to talk to you at all, you know.
You can call anytime.
Yeah, you're kept well hidden. No, you're easily accessible. No, thank you very much for your time. I had a couple of questions, and I just want to know if that was something that could possibly be seen being accomplished in the near future. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Todd. Seeing no further comments from the counselors, could I have a motion and a second to approve the budget of $371,671 for the information technology?
So moved.
Moved by Julie, seconded by Paul. Further discussion. Roll call vote. Ed. Oh, sorry, Ed. Further discussion. Yep.
So I just wanted to add just briefly, I know, Todd, that you have briefed the council on the security measures that are being taken and you're always on top of things. I personally think that's probably the single most important thing that you can be focused on going forward. I think to Brian Cusack's point, it's a real issue for a lot of municipalities. So I think if there are issues going forward and you want to prioritize that, I would encourage you to come before this council, because I do suspect you'd probably have broad support for anything that needs to be done.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, moving on with our vote. Myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
Excellent. So moved. Thanks so much, Todd. And thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You as well. Final budget, the town council budget. Kevin.
Town council budget, we are recommending an increase of $16,637 over fiscal 21. This increase breaks down $13,985 to the tax levy, $2,652 to the water and sewer and insurance transfer line item. There is an increase in personal services of $15,985, which is for contractual and negotiated increases. This portion of the budget also includes the new position, the Community and Economic Development Director, Erin Kokinda. She replaced the former town planner. We also did include 2 new part-time positions, the greeters that are at the front door of Town Hall. We did put an offset in there also from CARES. We're looking for a CARES reimbursement. So we'll get half of the cost of the greeters reimbursed. The net cost is $20,353 for next year. On the expense side of this budget, we have a decrease of $2,000. We decreased the town report line item $1,000, and also the travel line item by $1,000, and that was based on prior year usage. Main expenses within this budget, the advertising line item, which is used to advertise the town meetings, warrants, and town council hearings, and the professional services line item, $26,000, which is used to pay VHB, the town's traffic engineers, and also $6,000 that is for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts when they come out and do the weights and measures for the town. The total budget request for fiscal 22 is $579,366, with $503,521 coming from tax levy and $75,845 coming from a water, sewer, and insurance transfer.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Sherry, we still have no one from FinCom on town council budget?
Yeah, no subcommittee, no.
Okay.
Subcommittee did receive it, and they were told if they had any questions to contact me, and they did not. So
okay, I'll take that as a thumbs up. Steve, do you have any comments or
no
questions?
The greeters have worked out really well, and the council did reach out to me, or councilors did, to keep them. And we feel that for a number of these items that are new type of COVID positions, that we can expense those through December 31st of 2021. And that may be extended, but we are going to do that in this case right here. And this, I think all the budgets that came in front of you tonight, all told, is all pretty benign, and we're looking at a 2.72% increase over last year with everything that you have received so far. So we're trying to keep that number down as much. Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Any councilors have any questions for Steve on the town council budget? All right, seeing none. If I could please have a motion in a second to approve the town council budget of $579,366.
So moved.
Moved by Paul.
Second.
Seconded by Jonathan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you, Kevin. This was a kind of an easy one. Not too bad.
Good night. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You. All right, you too. Have a great night. Moving back to item number 7, appointments. discussion regarding increasing the membership of the youth council. I can give a little bit of background on this. I met with members of the youth council, and some of who are on here. I see Lauren Floyd's front and center. And so right now there are 11 members, 3 middle school students, 8 high school students. The council was very in agreement that they would like to increase the numbers of the voting members because they have a lot of interest for students to be a part of the council, and that interest seems to be more focused if they can vote. I also see Jack just jumped on as well, or turned his camera on. So I think we have other committees that certainly have more members. The youth council is impeccable when it comes to being not in violation of the open meeting law, of conducting a posting. They are one of the best committees, I would suggest, in posting minutes, on posting meetings. They're just meticulous with how they go about their business. I think any way we can get young people to be engaged would be fabulous. The committee should not be so unwieldy that reaching a quorum would be difficult. So I appreciate that. I know they do as well. And I think upping the numbers a little bit certainly is a great start. And if it's too unwieldy, then it's too unwieldy. We can always bring them back down. So right now there's 3 middle school students, 7th and 8th graders, 8 high school students. The ages range from 13 to 18 on the council. I know that the number that the youth council suggested was 20. It doesn't have to go to 20. It can go a little below that. But I just think I think raising the numbers definitely makes sense. So even, adding 3 to the middle school, 3 to the high school, something like that, we can certainly talk about numbers. So I just wanted to open it up to the counselors to ask some questions. Paul, I see your hand was up first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no objections to what is being proposed. All I ask is that this council puts it at an odd number. If you're going to do anything, make it 17, make it 19, but don't make it 18, don't make it 20. Make it an odd number. All boards, all committees should be an odd number. Okay, you never want to have a tie. Right. I've always been that way. I'm sorry.
No, I think great point.
My only request in the whole thing. I think it's a good idea if the youth council is asking for more. I don't have a problem. So pick a number. Do you want to go up to 15? Do you want to go up to 17? Do you want to go up to 19? Okay. Whatever the council is, I'll support. That's all.
Thanks, Paul. That makes a lot of sense. Julie.
I think that's a good point, Paul. I was going to ask Jack and Lauren, with 3 middle school students and 8 high school students, how are you finding the balance? I guess that would be the kind of input that I would want from you. I mean, is it better to have a kind of a 1-to-1 with high school? Are you really the high schoolers mentoring the younger? How do you see that breakout working?
Lauren, I can take this one. I do think that it kind of feels like a little bit like a mentor program. We have 3 non-voting middle school members and 3 voting middle school members, so in total 6 middle school members. So if we're kind of even number, there are, I think there are 7 voting high school members and 1 non-voting high school member too.
Okay.
So it's it's like 8 to 6. So it's kind of sort of like a one-on-one. And I know Lauren and I spent a lot of time talking to our middle school members, making sure they're comfortable. I think also increasing the middle school membership will allow their voice to be heard too. Because I do feel sometimes I think the high schooler voices are much more overpowered than they are, just because there's so much more fewer of them.
Yeah.
So
great point.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah, I support this, whatever the number you think is. I just know from the interactions I've had with the youth council, you're working on a huge breadth of issues. And the more attention we can have on that, the more youth that we can involve, I think.
Great. Thanks, Julie. Ed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. having spent some time working on the formation of this, I know that there had been a lot of discussion. I recall in Mr. Mayo's office even, we were talking about what was an appropriate, what felt like an appropriate number. And I just remind everyone on here that the membership to the Youth Council is unlimited. And so and I think that's an important distinction here, that in arriving at 11, it wasn't a haphazard number. It certainly had to be an odd number. But I have a little bit of hesitation for a few reasons. One of them is the idea of quorum. And I know that a lot of students have perhaps a little bit more time to be available now, but during COVID times. But I'm a little bit concerned as students become overscheduled as we find our ways out of this pandemic, that there may be times where there may not be the kind of attendance that you're able to have during these times. So I think that's something to be mindful of, because certainly we want to make sure that the council is able to vote on things, and quorum is something that I don't think we should be losing sight of. And the other piece is the whole goal, I think, of the town council with this was to make sure that we were as open as we could to invite in as many different voices and as many different students as we could. And when you have, as we keep upping the membership, that just means that so we'll never know what the membership is. Hopefully the membership is 50, at some point. But at this point, if we increase the voting number of members, then that just means we decrease the non-voting number of members. So I think the non-voting number of members then could potentially feel more alienated because there are less of them, whereas if we have, say, a solid group of, say, 11 that are voting and then another solid group of 12 that are not, then, associate members can then, hopefully then, as there's turnover, have the opportunity to then become voting members if they want. But I having participated in these meetings, I've seen that when I met everyone the first time, they were very engaged, and I'd say that there's no question that everyone's voice would be equally heard and respected throughout. I just think there's a logistical piece to this that we should probably be giving some thought to. So I actually feel comfortable with the 11, with the understanding that everyone has an equal voice, and that any voting members need to respect all the voices that they hear, of their classmates or their other colleagues. And I think it probably it better mirrors some of our other, committees or boards, including the ZBA, which, for example, has alternates, that are, or just, other groups that have non-voting members. I think environmental sustainability might have some non-voting on there too. So again, I'm not, adamantly opposed to the idea of that, but I think just logistically, I think you guys might find you're in a better shape as you are. So that's my position.
Thanks, Ed. I think in being in some meetings with the students, I do think they were really thoughtful about not wanting to just add voting members for the sake of adding them. And I appreciate all the work done at the beginning of the committee. And certainly you worked on this, putting it together. But after a year or so, I think they're feeling like adding voting members is not going to decrease the engagement. In fact, it would actually up the engagement. So there might be a sweet spot with just adding a few and bringing those middle school numbers up a little bit to keep those students engaged that can carry hopefully on to the high school. Jonathan.
Thank you. I just wanted to, echo some of the points that have been raised by Councilor Giannakko and Councilor Smith-Galvin and Chair Santos. I've been just so profoundly impressed by the level of discussion, the level of interest, the level of commitment that the members of the Youth Council have brought to those discussions they've been in. Certainly in, seeing members of the Youth Council present to the school committee, seeing Youth Council participation in the Wakefield 2030 vision work. It's really been incredibly impressive. And so I'm very supportive of an expansion. And I do think, similar to how I would defer to, any other committee that isn't sort of set forth in our charter to kind of make their own recommendations about, how many voting members they want and how they want to set up the committee. I would, propose that we give the same sort of deference to the Youth Council in this case. And so, from my perspective, whatever sort of specific proposal, Jack and Lauren, that, you're willing to extend, that would absolutely have my support. So thank you.
Tom Mullen.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to bring up to whatever extent it may be kind of a an issue for the council about concern about a quorum, and I understand that it becomes much harder to get a quorum as a group is made larger. You should bear in mind that we are not wedded to having a quorum be a majority. That's the default rule in Massachusetts, but it's not legally required. So if you create, as your council did, a committee, if you don't specify otherwise, then a quorum is a majority, but you're free to set a quorum at any level you want. In fact, in nonprofit corporations, where frequently the number of members is huge, thousands of people want to join this or that organization, but only a handful actually show up for meetings. Frequently, the quorum is set extremely low. And you might entertain the same thing if it's a concern.
Thanks, Tom. That's really helpful information that I didn't know. Excellent. Maureen.
Thank you, Chair. I just echoing what everyone said. You guys have done such a great, amazing work, and so proud of you. And I know it's in my materials, and apologies, Chair Santos or Tom, helping me out. How long are the terms, or Sherry? How long are
1 year?
1 year. So every year we would, right? Because I know we had almost just enough this year, and I think your reputation, you're going to build something great, and so we'll have more people. But I just didn't know if it was like a longer than 1 year, if the seventh graders then had it for 3 years or something, so you had to recruit. Right. So no, that's great. And and what is the proposal? What are Jack and Lauren, what are you guys asking for? To get more middle schoolers? Like that would be helpful, or members overall?
So our conversation, and I want Jack and Lauren to jump in, they had thrown out a number, which even when they threw it out, I thought, well, it's even, and it's maybe a tiny bit high. They had thrown out 20. But, I think to go anywhere, to go to 17 or 19 seems to be a sweet spot if we increase the number. You could even add 2 middle school to make it 5 middle, 2 high school to make it 10, or do you add 4 middle school to make it, 7. I'm just not coming up with the 7. I would say the 15, 17, or 19 is where we would want to fall. So with Jack and Lauren, do you think, based on your experience, and you have more subcommittee meetings than anyone, because I've been to a bunch of them, do you think it's more important to get that middle school number more equivalent to the high school? I think having more high school makes sense because there's a little bit more maturity and a little bit more, perhaps, poise in running these, and the middle schoolers can follow you. Listening to this conversation, do you have a number that you think works?
I definitely agree with that. No, Lauren can also jump in here too. I do think that having more high school members in general is a good idea, just because, again, we're older, have a higher level of maturity, understanding of open meeting law, etc. Yeah. I do think increasing the middle school numbers a certain amount is a good idea. Maybe it's increasing it 3 more or something, okay. Something just like that, just so we can have a 6 or 7 middle schoolers. Yeah, I like the idea of like a 15 or 17. That sounds pretty good to me. Okay. I don't know if Lauren has any ideas on that, but I do think increasing middle school members in general would be a really big positive. And we've actually never had any problems in quorum. The only people we haven't had show up are sometimes non-voting members, but almost every meeting, every single voting member shows up. So I think the quorum issue, I do not find is really large, but it could always come to that too. So
sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Jack. I think that this year, and it's our first year, so there's nothing really to compare it to, but the middle schoolers that we have on our council are extremely mature and poised. Mm-hmm. And I know I personally, even though that they're younger than me, I learned so much from them every single meeting. So I think that I don't think it would be a bad idea to have a heavier weight of high school members. Sure. I think that almost like peer mentoring thing that we were kind of talking about earlier is a really good idea. Because like I said, like I know I learned so much from them, and I think that they learn, or I'd like to hope that they learn a lot from us. So I definitely wouldn't be opposed to it kind of being even, but maybe a little bit heavier on the high school end.
Sure. Okay, someone who's better at math than myself late on a Tuesday or Monday, see? Don't even have the dates right. On a Monday. You know, if we say you bumped it up to 5, you could add 3 to middle school or another 2, and then the same thing, add 2 or 3 to the 8. Julie, you're good at this stuff.
So Jackie said we have 3 voting middle schoolers, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And we have 7 voting high schoolers?
8.
8 voting high schoolers. So
Yep.
it's 11. Oh, okay. So if we went to...
I was thinking you could go add 3 to middle school and do 6.
Yeah.
If you add 3 to the high school and do 11, that makes 17.
17.
How does that sound?
One, you know, so you've got 2 high schoolers, essentially, almost 2 high schoolers to every middle school.
Based on what Tom said, with 17, is there so the majority quorum would be 9. So do we want to put the quorum a little bit lower to make it more sustainable? Like, I don't know, 7 or 8?
I don't know. What do you guys think, Jack and Lauren?
Yeah, I think 17 sounds great. I think quorum maybe a little lower than 59. Like, I'm pretty sure that we can always reach a 9 quorum. But you know, never know if sports comes up or a game or whatever. But maybe a little lower, maybe 7 or 6 or whatever. But these honestly sounds great, and we really appreciate you guys helping us out and increasing all this.
Ed.
I just think like part of this is so that we can have the youth council as much like the other committees, commissions, and boards, you know. So I feel like even things like quorum, like that's an important thing to learn about, you know, and to know kind of going forward. So if we go at 17, I mean, it sounds like, Jack, you're not concerned about having 9 voting members at a meeting, right? From your experience. So I'd almost venture if we do end up going with that number, then we go with a larger number. But and then we can always, you know, readjust. If you guys find that you can't get something voted on, then come back to us and we can talk about that and then, you know, figure it out from there. But I do like the idea of, as Chair Santos said, you guys are doing a lot of things like, you know, open meeting laws and subcommittees, all sorts of things that, you know, when you're over 18, you'd be doing on our other committees and things in town. So I don't know. I would suggest we keep quorum.
I have no problem with that, Ed. I think if we keep the quorum and then you guys, the youth council can always come back to us at any meeting to ask us to adjust that if you find that it's not sustainable. But, you know, I think Ed has a point about treating this committee the way we do other committees, and you have been so responsible in doing so. So I think that's a great compromise. And so the motion would be that we add 3 voting members to the middle school students to have 6 middle school voters. We add 3 voting members to the high school students to have 11 high school voting students for a total of 17. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Thank you, Sherry. I need someone checking that stuff. Paul, you moved. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Jonathan. Any further discussion?
That leave it we're going to leave it at a 9-member quorum, correct?
We are. We're going to leave it like every other.
And if the youth council deems that if they have issues, they can always come back to us and have a change, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, that's it.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
And just one thing, and I know we want to treat our groups just equally as we can, but I just want to acknowledge that youth council is a little different. And so we appoint everyone in April, and there's chances that you get appointed as a middle schooler, and by the end of your term, you become a high schooler. And so, you know, let's see how it goes, Jack and Lauren, but report back to us that maybe, you know, you're the one commission in town that we move to a summer. So it's what you're incoming as, just because I think that's, you know, I'm thinking April right now just isn't a timeline that works for you guys, but again, pandemic, everyone's kind of at home. 3:30 Friday meetings can work for everyone right now. But I think just something to consider is maybe we do all of our, youth council just on that's a little different, and we do over the summer appointments, like they apply over the summer before September school year.
That makes tremendous sense. Absolutely. Thank you. So I think we're ready for the vote. We have a motion by Paul, seconded by
Jonathan.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Myself, yes. Jonathan.
Yes.
Maureen.
Yes.
Julie.
Yes.
Ed.
Yes.
And Paul.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, you have a bigger group, guys. So thank you so much for bringing it to my attention, and good luck with everything, and give a holler if you have any other questions.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys. Good work.
All righty. Appointment of Wakefield representative to the MAPC. Steve?
Yes, Paul Revis was our previous representative to the MAPC, and he has retired. Paul did a wonderful job. I would suggest that keeping that in that same, ballpark, that the council appoint Erin Kokinda as our representative to the MAPC for a 3-year term, which is what they want. So that's my suggestion there.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Any questions for Steve? All right. If someone could make a motion to appoint Erin Kokinda to our representative to the MAPC.
So moved.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Ed. Any discussion? All right, excellent. Roll call vote. Myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Item number 9, the annual town meeting. We have proposals for setting the date for the town meeting and then the warrants.
Yes, we'd like to have the town meeting. I think that I've heard that people seem to enjoy the Saturday date. I would keep this at the field house with the indoor-outdoor availability again, because I think we'll be coming out of COVID, but maybe we can be back in the middle school, Galvin Middle School in November, because that is a little nicer location. But I would set it up basically the same way. I think DPW did a great job. We would have, the same format, but love to set it for Saturday, May 8th at 8 a.m. And according to Town Council Mullen, and he may want to say a few words, this is in complete accordance with all state and the state laws. Correct, Tom?
Yeah, Mr. Town Administrator and Chair Santos, the charter contemplates that we will have our annual town meeting within 30 days of the first Monday in April. This is just outside of it. However, the town council may, under general laws, chapter 39, section 9, extend by vote the date of the annual town meeting, provided only that the job gets done by June 30.
Okay. So Tom, would we need a separate vote on that to set it for May 8th?
I think I'd appreciate it if the vote, it could be just one vote, but it'd be a vote to extend the date for the annual town meeting to fall on May 8 at 8 a.m.
Excellent. Any questions for Tom? So if we could I could have a motion and a second to extend the date for the annual town meeting to Saturday, May 8th, 2021 at 8 a.m.
So moved.
Moved by Paul.
Second.
Seconded by Julie. Any discussion on that? Excellent. Seeing none. Myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Aye.
And Paul?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom, for pointing that out. Next, we have we need a vote and a motion and a second to have the open annual town meeting warrant opened on February 8th, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Jonathan, seconded by Paul. Any questions or comments on this? Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote on opening the town meeting warrant as of today. Myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen? Maureen? Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Aye.
And Paul?
Yes.
And finally, to have a motion to close the annual town meeting warrant at 4:30 p.m. on March 31st, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Paul.
Second.
Seconded by Jonathan. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Aye.
And Paul?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Thank you for all of that. Announcements.
Oh, I'll start.
Okay.
Thank you. Just to, over the course of the last few months, I'm not sure what the issue is, but I've had a couple of phone calls. I've witnessed it firsthand. There's been an increase of people exceeding the speed limit on both Montrose and Water Street. Especially on Montrose. They're coming off of Salem Street, I'm told, a little bit on the fast side, and they're approaching the hairpin turns going towards the high school at an excessive rate. It's posted 20 miles an hour. Even I've witnessed that road. No one's doing 20 miles an hour. So the request by the citizens is if the Lieutenant Anderson can possibly do something, not sure what that would be, as to try to slow the people down in the residential area of Montrose. The second thing is how fast people are coming in, leaving Wakefield via Water Street in the Saugus direction. I can hear myself being close to that proximity, the cars accelerating, or motorcycles accelerating. So I know that it's happening, but I never witnessed it. But I'm hearing now reports that they think it's a dragway because it's a straightaway until they get to Saugus. So I'm not sure what the lieutenant can do, but I would like the lieutenant to look into it if possible. Traffic Advisory Committee, that would be greatly appreciated. The other issue, or not issue, but a matter that I discussed with Steve recently was, can we, Steve said that the town is working currently with Jen to get DPW work sites posted on the website. Is that still happening, Steve?
Yes.
That is. Okay. If anyone is connected to National Grid in their announcements, they give it a full detailed report weekly of where they're going to work, how long they're going to be there, and what to anticipate. With the upcoming construction season for the DPW, I think that would be a benefit to the townspeople to at least know what areas to avoid, instead of going down a road and finding that you detoured around it. So I think it's a great idea, and I can't wait to see it instituted on the town website. That's all, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Any other announcements? Julie, then Maureen, then Jonathan.
Thank you. Two things, and I'm not going to read it all, but I was at the Wake Up meeting recently, and there was an excellent report on where we are on tobacco enforcement in town. So I will send this around, but essentially Maureen Busby, who leads our tobacco enforcement, has been doing a lot of work on retail education. And it was pointed out that not only with tobacco enforcement, but also alcohol enforcement, it's a lot easier for underage kids to get things because everybody's wearing a mask and it's harder to check IDs. So I know they're doing, you know, a tremendous amount of work to try to manage that, and words a little on the streets that it's easier, I hear from the teenagers. But she did point out that there is one business in Greenwood that the fines were also essentially went from $100 for a first offense to $1,000. And so we have one retailer in the Greenwood area that is on a second offense for the flavored vapes. And so I just wanted to really thank Maureen and her team and it's hard because she used to have students go out with her and do a lot of the buying. And so it's harder to get together. You can't be in cars. So I think, Steve, this is probably just another example of some of these things that we just assume are easy that are really hard right now during COVID. So I wanted to give a shout out to them. The other thing is that I've been working really as a resident to understand a light department issue where the light department in 2015 decided to sign a long-term contract to build a new natural gas oil plant up in Peabody. It's been under development for a number of years, very kind of quietly done. Nothing was done improperly, but it's just a lot of meetings, not only with the Wakefield Light Department, but with the 13 other utilities that have signed on to this project. And kind of given where we are these days with the climate legislation and some of the net zero goals, it's disturbing to me that Wakefield is a part of this. The Light Department has been very forthcoming in answering questions and reviewing everything. I would agree with them that financially it's too much of a hit on the ratepayers to get out of at this point, but I think there is going to be some attention not only on Wakefield, but on the other 13 communities that are part of this, and on the what they call MWEC, the municipal, the Massachusetts Municipal Wholesale Electricity Company, that is essentially the umbrella organization for this. So I just wanted to bring it up. I think it's going to start making its way into the public domain. And I just wanted you all to know about it. I'm not sure there's anything that we can do at this point other than continue to ask our commissioners that even if this is something that we can't get out of, that we continue to really, as a vision for the town, continue to also look for low carbon and low emission options.
Thanks, Julie.
Sure.
Excuse me, Jonathan.
Actually, Councilor Butt, I think you had your hand up first.
Oh, okay, Maureen.
That's fine. Thank you, Jonathan. Just a couple of announcements. Let's see. One, as Julie just mentioned, the climate change bill going through. I was wondering if in a future meeting we could invite our delegation, as it's a new start of a legislation session, and just to hear what the three of them are working on. I just want to give kudos. I know with vaccination, all their offices have just been so helpful in sharing that information. So just for a future meeting, maybe as we get through the budget, but kind of ask them to come and talk about their priorities, that would be great. I just want to echo, great job with the vaccination clinic, only positive things. So just everyone that was involved, from all the volunteers to the bouncers, to the nurses, to public safety who was there, just everyone, thank you so much. Steve, I know you've probably gotten emails about this, but there is an end in sight on the vaccination, but people still need to do the 3 W's that we're so proud of: wear mask, wash their hands, and watch their steps. And if there's some ways we can maybe do some reminders around the lake, I think that would be appreciated. I don't know, some lawn signs or something around the lake, just to remind people, especially with the snow, it's harder for people to cross the street and walk on the other side. And just be courteous. We're almost at the end. Just wear those masks as much as you can. Two more things. One, we had the Youth Council in front of us and members of FinCom. Applications for our great commissions and boards are due Friday to Sherry. So if you are interested in doing this great work and volunteering and giving back, please look to see what's available and send Sherry a great email. She'll appreciate it. And then just finally, my favorite topic of all time.
The garden.
Yes. So the Recreation Committee, Dan McGrath at Recreations posted that you can apply for your spot at the 2021 Community Garden. They will have their lottery in April, but please share. I love it. I hope I get another spot, and then Julie and benefit from whatever I end up growing. But just, kudos to people who are still getting their work done in all the departments, library, recreation, public safety, town hall, DPW. But thank you. And yes, I will be talking about community garden. for another full year.
Thanks, Maureen. Any other announcements?
Sure, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
Oh, Jonathan, I totally forgot.
No, that's okay. First of all, I just want to say, Maureen, if you don't get a community gardens plot, you're welcome to plant something in our yard, considering I have whatever the opposite of a green thumb is. It would only be an improvement over what I can do. A couple of announcements I wanted to share. First of all, just a reminder that the first virtual public forum for the Wakefield Vision 2030 initiative is going to be on March 4th, which is a Thursday at 7 o'clock. I know Jen McDonald and Erin Kokinda are meeting with MAPC tomorrow to kind of finish the planning for that forum and also the communication plans. So we will start to get information out of that, for that in the next couple of weeks. Another exciting opportunity, a hint of things reopening is that the Albion Cultural Exchange has their first exhibit over the last year. Their New Beginnings exhibit is now open. It is available for people to see by appointment only. They're working very hard to make sure that they abide by the governor's restrictions around gathering. And so for anyone who's interested in seeing the exhibit, I know I'm very excited to do so. If you go on to the Albion Cultural Exchange's website, you can email them to request a particular time. And that's due to be open between now and April, so plenty of time to get in there. Also want to highlight the Wakefield Educational Foundation, because of the pandemic, is not doing their annual spelling bee this year. The upside of that is that the Lake Quannapowitt Bees, who were the champions last year, get to celebrate our championship for another consecutive year. But in lieu of the spelling bee, they are doing a virtual family trivia night that's going to be on March 5th at 7 p.m. So keep an eye out for that, and something that I hope a lot of people participate. They do a great job. Andrew Tetrault, who's one of the assistant principals at the Galvin, is emceeing it, and he's always a riot. So it will definitely be worth the Friday night. And then last but not least, just wanted to mention, I will be doing my monthly office hours next Thursday, the 18th at 6 o'clock. I have been doing them outside, but because it's starting to get really cold, I'll be doing it on Facebook Live. So tune in and let me know if anyone has any questions. Thanks so much, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Jonathan. Ed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first wanted to mention that we were able to secure time with VHB for the downtown revitalization project. And so we'll be able to have a public forum that's coming up on Wednesday, February 24th at 7 p.m. And it will be another opportunity for folks to get an update in terms of where things stand, review the plans as in their current form, and otherwise get updates on that project. It's very exciting. We continue to make great headway. It's definitely a marathon, not a sprint, and we have a great team assembled. So I hope you can join us. That would obviously be via Zoom. The other piece I just wanted to mention briefly was I have been hearing from a number of constituents in relation to the issue of the Warrior logo. And I realize that this is a high school issue and also a community issue because we have a lot of Wakefield alumni. And I just want to I haven't responded to everyone, but just want to let everyone know that I have heard the concerns that you've raised, and I have passed them along to school committee leadership. And I am very hopeful that the school committee will give this the thought and deliberation that it deserves. I'm confident that it will, and I'm sure that all of us share the common goal of making sure that we have a robust process throughout. So with that, I think they'll be taking that issue up in further detail tomorrow night. But I just wanted to let folks know that I have been hearing from you, and I have passed along your concern to make sure that you're part of the public process, and I'm confident the school committee will do just that.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks. A couple announcements. One is, I wish I could announce a more precise food pantry challenge that we have with school committee, but Mike Boudreau is working on it through the school committee. Jonathan delivered a beautiful basket of exactly what was requested. But I think
it was beautiful, but it was full.
it was beautiful with food, exactly on point. But I think Mike, who works at the food pantry, in what I was suggesting is money is a better donation. So if people want to drop off food at my house, absolutely. But I think we're going to we're going to push to have this folks donate money. And so I'll get some language. There's been a lot of other issues bring around. So Mike and I hadn't met yet on that. So I'm going to get information, but you can all post. I mean, you all know that, you know, those of you on social media, if you want to ask for contributions in your name or in the town council's name, so we can crush the school committee, because that's the goal, is to crush the school committee and raise wonderful money for the food pantry. I think that would be great. So we have a drop date of February 16th. I actually, I'm going to ask to move that out because where I teach, that Tuesday is a Monday schedule, so I am not available on that Tuesday. But I will get back to you with more details. But if you just want to start, you know, asking folks to, if they want to make donations, and they can just simply put town council, not school committee, on any kind of memo line. So not school committee, town council, and then we will crush them like the bugs that they are. Okay, I'll get you more information on that. It's all a good challenge though. My second announcement, I am taking prerogative as chair to spend just a little bit of short time to talk about my uncle. So my uncle, Zach Boyard, just died a couple of days ago. He was my mother's half Boyagist. He was my mother's older brother. And I'm talking as a citizen of Wakefield here. Zach and my uncle, Al, my older uncle, Al, they started youth basketball in Wakefield. I don't care who says they might have started it now, but they didn't. My uncle started it in the late 60s when they would grab kids and throw them into station wagons and cars and drive them all around the state to play basketball. And that developed into travel basketball, which was at the YMCA until it moved to Dolbear. There are generations of boys that my uncle taught, and he was a Korean War veteran. He was a captain, and our families are uniquely close because his wife died at a very young age, and our families became quite blended at that point, with my mom kind of running point. So I was dragged around as a little girl to all these games as well, myself and my cousin Linda. But I know that we've heard from so many men who not just talked about Zach teaching them fundamentals of basketball, and boys who went on to play in championship games and to go, you know, national games, but what Zach taught them about sportsmanship, about being a gentleman, and what was really unique, we've heard from some men who may not have had a father figure in the house, and Zach stepped up into that place. And that was hard in the 60s and 70s, you know, not maybe like it is today. So he lived a beautiful life until 90, was super active until very recently. So we feel blessed. But I think he was truly a man of Wakefield. And, you know, there aren't many that come along like him who impacted so many generations. So our family is obviously sad, but we're just, again, so blessed to have so many folks come out of the woodwork really giving their love to us. So I just wanted to take that prerogative and say that we will miss Zach, but boy, did he leave an imprint in Wakefield with a lot of folks. So thank you for indulging me. Steve.
I wanted to say that I was one of those kids that was in the back of the station wagon, and at the end of the bench, I might add. But what a great influence on the people of Wakefield, and absolutely correct. He did create Wakefield Youth Basketball, what it was called. And I remember at the banquet winning a basketball, and I can remember that to this day, having that basketball handed to me by Mr. Boyage, Zach Boyage. Touched a lot of lives, and in such a positive way. He will be missed.
Thank you. Any other comments? Are we good? All right. Thank you all. Our next meeting is going to be Monday, February 22nd at 7 p.m. And I will get back to folks with information with regard to the food pantry. So thank you all. Can I have a motion for, in a second, to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Jonathan. Myself, yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
Great. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night and everyone stay safe.
Night all.
Night.